With everything going on with the coronavirus and COVID-19, what does Jesus say about disease, and why would it matter? We should talk about it. Hey, my name is Chris Pavla, and welcome to What Jesus Says About, where Jesus speaks for himself so you can respond for yourself. And don't forget to hit subscribe so you can stay up to date on what Jesus says about topics important to you. Topics like what Jesus says about disease. And when it comes to disease, Jesus' actions speak louder than his words. And it's a message that we usually miss in the 21st century until we encounter a disease that causes so much concern, a disease like the coronavirus. Now, in the ancient world, if you had an infectious disease, you were declared unclean, or you were called untouchable. And if you had an infectious disease like, let's say, leprosy, and you saw someone coming near you, you had to shout out at the top of your lungs, "Unclean! Unclean," so they could avoid contamination from you and your untouchable disease. And so if you had an infectious disease, you would have to leave the community and quarantine yourself in the wilderness in intense isolation and social distancing so you wouldn't contaminate anyone else. Sound familiar? Enter Jesus. And what makes him so remarkable to the first century audience, and what we usually miss when we read about him, is that he was unafraid of disease. And in the biographies of Jesus, you read over and over how he would heal people who had deadly infectious diseases. And when he would heal them, it wasn't with a wave of his hand or a magic word. When Jesus would heal people, he would touch them. He would touch the untouchable. And not with like rubber gloves and hand sanitizer and a mask on. No, he would just reach out in compassion and skin to skin touch them. And one Jewish follower named Matthew is watching all of this, and he starts to think back to the words of a prophet named Isaiah that was written hundreds of years before Jesus, and he described what the Messiah would do. And so in his biography of Jesus, Matthew makes sure to mention this when he writes, "Jesus healed all the sick to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet Isaiah. He took on our sickness and carried our diseases." And this means that Matthew discovered something about Jesus because of the sickness. He realized that the promised Messiah wouldn't just come to heal our disease, it was more than that. He would enter into our suffering and touch our untouchable disease. So why does any of this matter right now? Well, just like Matthew, I believe that you and I can transform this into an experience where we can discover something about Jesus. The easiest way to do this is to use this new perspective we have because of our social distancing and our self-isolation, and pick up one of the biographies of Jesus, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. And as you read, you'll be able to examine Jesus with a new understanding and a new appreciation of just how valuable it is that Jesus didn't just come to heal us, but that he was unafraid to give us the very thing that you and I want more than anything else in this season of self-isolation and social distancing: presence.